The thunderclap ripped through the mess hall like a gunshot. But it wasn't the storm outside that made HOA flinch. It was the roar of laughter exploding around her. HOA Karen strikes again, bellowed Sergeant Ramirez, slamming his tray down so hard the plastic forks jumped. His voice boomed over the clatter of rain hammering the tin roof, drowning out the distant rumble of engines on the tarmac. HOA stood there, fists clenched at her sides, the metallic tang of cheap coffee burning her nostrils as she stared down the table of smirking soldiers. She'd just demanded politely. She thought that the base commander addressed the faulty wiring in the women's barracks, the kind that sparked and fizzed like a live wire in the humid Afghan nights. But to them, it was another Karen moment, her Vietnamese-American accent twisting like a knife in their guts. Proof she didn't belong in this man's army. Her cheeks burned hotter than the desert sun, a mix of rage and humiliation churning in her stomach like sour milk. She sighed deeply, the sound lost in the guffaws, and turned away, the rubber soles of her boots squeaking on the linoleum floor as she pushed through the swinging doors into the howling wind. Outside, the storm was a beast, whipping sand and rain into a gritty slurry that stung her eyes and clung to her fatigues like wet cement. HOA wiped her face with a trembling hand, the salt of tears mixing with the downpour. Why did she always have to fight for the basics? Back home in California, her parents had drilled it into her. Speak up. Demand respect. But here, in this godforsaken outpost, it made her the punchline. Entitled bitch. They'd whisper, mimicking her requests for better gear or safer protocols. She trudged toward the hangar, the wind howling like a wounded animal, pulling at her ponytail until strands lashed her face. Lightning flashed, illuminating the hulking silhouettes of Black Hawk helicopters, their rotors drooping like weary giants. She paused, breathing in the sharp scent of aviation fuel and ozone, a reminder of why she'd joined the Armado Fly, to prove she was more than the refugee kid label that had haunted her since childhood. Inside the hangar, the air was thick with grease and sweat, the fluorescent lights buzzing like angry bees overhead. Captain Ellis, her CO, was barking orders at a crew prepping for a routine supply run. He spotted her and rolled his eyes, a dramatic sigh escaping his lips. What now? Karen. Come to complain about the weather. The nickname stung worse than a scorpion's tail, a jab at her persistence that had started as a joke but festered into something cruel. HOA straightened her spine, ignoring the snickers from the mechanics. Sir, the radar's showing a massive front moving in. We should ground the birds until it passes. Ellis waved her off, his voice dripping with condescension. We've flown in worse. You're overreacting again. The words hit like a slap, her heart pounding in her ears, a flush of anger rising as she bit back a retort. She turned on her heel, the echo of her boots fading into the storm's fury. But inside, doubt gnawed at her. Was she really just a complainer? Or were they blind to the dangers she saw so clearly? That night, as the base hunkered down, HOA's mind raced like the wind outside her bunk. She tossed on the thin mattress, the creak of the metal frame sinking with her uneven breaths. Memories flooded in the boat her family had fled Vietnam on, the waves crashing like thunder, her mother's whispers of strength in the darkness. A soft knock startled her. She sat up, heart skipping. It was Private Lynn, a fresh-faced kid from Texas with a drawl thicker than molasses. Ma'am. Couldn't sleep either. He slipped in, rain dripping from his cap, carrying a steaming mug that smelled of chamomile and honey. Heard the guys giving you hell. It's bullshit. HOA blinked, surprised. Lynn was new, quiet, but his eyes held a flicker of something familiar empathy. Maybe. They talked in hushed tones, the rain pattering against the window like impatient fingers. He shared his own story, a brother lost in Iraq. Ignored warnings that could have saved him. You're not Karen. Ma'am. You're the voice we need. His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, easing the knot in her chest. But as he left, a sigh escaped her lips, heavy with unresolved tension. Dawn broke gray and furious, the storm unrelenting. Alarms blared through the base, piercing the air like sirens from hell. A recon team was down ambushed in the mountains. Chopper crashed in the gale, The radio crackled with panic. Mayday! Mayday! Winds at 80 knots. Visibility 0. Wounded on board. Need evac now. HOA's pulse thundered in her temples as she sprinted to the command tent. Mud splashing up her legs. The cold seeping through her boots. Ellis was there. Face ashen. Barking into the handset. No one's flying in this shit. But the voices on the other end pleaded. Screams of pain echoing faintly. The metallic clink of gunfire in the background. HOA's breath came in short gasps. She stepped forward. Voice steady despite the fear coiling in her gut. I'll go. Sir. I can handle it. Laughter erupted again. Bitter and sharp. You. The complainer. You'd probably ground yourself mid-flight. Ramirez sneered. But Ellis hesitated. Eyes narrowing. In that moment, an unexpected figure emerged from the shadows. Colonel Vance. A grizzled vet on a surprise inspection. His uniform crisp despite the chaos. He'd overheard the mockery, his jaw tightening like a vice. Let her fly, he growled, voice low and gravelly, cutting through the din like a knife. Whispers rippled. Vance was a legend. But rumors swirled. Lost his own squad years ago to ignored intel from a female pilot dismissed as hysterical. The room fell silent. The only sound the relentless drum of rain on canvas. HOA met his gaze. A nod of silent understanding passing between them. It was the twist she hadn't seen coming. This ally from nowhere. Fueling her resolve. She dashed to the hangar. The wind shoving her like an invisible hand. Her boots pounding the wet pavement in rhythm with her racing heart. Strapping into the Black Hawk. The cockpit enveloped her in a cocoon of dials and switches. The familiar hum of the engines vibrating through her bones. The rotors whined to life. A high-pitched scream building to a thunderous roar that drowned out the storm's howl. Cleared for takeoff. Crackled the tower. Doubt lacing the words. HOA gripped the stick. Sweat beading on her forehead. The acrid smell of jet fuel mixing with her own fierce sweat. Lightning forked across the sky as she lifted off. The chopper bucking like a wild horse. Rain sheeting the windshield in blurry waves. Her breaths came ragged. Each one a battle against the panic rising like bile. Come on, girl, she muttered, voice trembling. The turbines whined piercing her eardrums. The flight was hell incarnate. Winds slammed the bird sideways. Alarms blaring in shrill beeps that set her teeth on edge. Visibility was a joke, gray walls of cloud and rain. The mountains looming like shadowy predators. HOA's hands ached on the controls. Knuckles white. Every muscle screaming as she wrestled the hello through the turbulence. Flashbacks hit her, the laughter in the mess hall. The sighs of dismissal. The weight of being Karen. Anger surged. Hot and fierce. Propelling her forward. Then, a voice on the radio weak. Broken, we're here. Hurry. It was the down pilot. His groans punctuated by coughs that sounded wet and final. HOA's heart twisted. Tears blurring her vision. But she pushed on. The chopper's frame groaning like an old man in pain. Spotting the crash site was a miracle of flares, red glow piercing the murk. Smoke curling up like desperate fingers. She hovered. Rotors chopping the air with a deafening thwop thwop thwop. Lowering the hoist amid gusts that threatened to flip her. Soldiers below scrambled. Faces pale and blood-streaked. The metallic scent of blood wafting up on the wind. One by one, she winched them up, the wounded first. Their moans echoing in the cabin. The sticky warmth of blood soaking the floor. A sudden downdraft slammed her down. The altimeter spinning wildly. Her stomach lurching as if on a roller coaster from hell. Hold on, she shouted. Voice raw. Pulling up with every ounce of strength. Muscles burning. Breath hitching in sobs. Back at base. The landing was a blur, medics swarming. Stretchers clattering on the tarmac. The storm's roar fading to a distant grumble. HOA staggered out. Legs jelly. The cool rain mixing with hot tears on her face. The rescued soldiers gripped her hands. Eyes wide with gratitude. Their whispers of thank you like balm on her wounds. But the real climax came in the debrief. Ellis. Face flushed with shame. Muttering an apology under his breath. Ramirez stood silent. The laughter gone. Replaced by averted eyes and a heavy sigh. And Vance. He clapped her on the shoulder. Voice booming. That's how you lead. Soldier. Not by mocking be listening. Yet, the twist deepened investigation revealed the initial crash stemmed from ignored maintenance logs HOA had flagged weeks ago. Dismissed as Karen whining. Heads rolled, Ramirez demoted. Ellis reprimanded. Their careers tarnished like rusted metal. For HOA, it was bittersweet justice. The sting of past humiliations easing into quiet pride. She stood on the tarmac days later. Sun breaking through clouds. The fresh scent of earth after rain filling her lungs. A deep breath. A sigh of release. She'd proven them wrong. Not with complaints, but with courage. In the end, true strength isn't in silent sights and speaking up, even when the world laughs. And sometimes, that voice saves lives.